It's time for the Las Vegas Sportsline. Brought to you by the Westgate Las Vegas, home of the world's largest race and sports book and the Super Contest.
Money won is twice as sweet as money earned.
Presented by WagerTalk.com.
And here we go. It's the Tuesday edition of the Las Vegas Sportsline. It is brought to you by the Westgate Las Vegas, home of Superbook USA. Jeff Sherman will join us in a little bit. Lots to talk about with Jeff as we go across the board. Basketball, football, actually not football, baseball, hockey, football European style.
You got the American Allegiance of Alliance or whatever, the football league.
Probably not going to mention that. That's Marco DAngelo. All right, Platinum's here. I'm Dave Cokin. Big news in baseball today, but it's not Bryce Harper. He has not yet signed with anybody, but Nolan Arenado is going to be a Rocky for lots of years to come. An 8-year extension is, I don't know if it's been finalized yet, but it's just a matter of just getting whatever the I's dotted and the T's crossed. Arenado, 8 years, and I believe his annual salary will be the highest ever for any position player. And it really is becoming interesting to see where Harper is going to fit, because I don't think he's going to get, I don't know that he's going to get the same. He's not going to get any more than Machado if he gets a 10-year contract. And I think he'd have to go shorter term and then might not even get more than Arenado's getting per year from the Rockies. So getting interesting as far as Bryce goes. And the jury's still out as to where he will end up. I think the two favorites now are the Phillies and Dodgers, and it looks like they might be neck and neck.
Yeah, and with these signings that we've had, like you said, with Machado and today's signing, it just makes, not that he's going to get it, but the ego is going to put him where he wants, well, I want this kind of money. They just, dealt this out to this guy. I want this. And like you said, I don't think it's going to happen for him.
I think it might if he goes for a shorter-term contract, like 4 years. And that was what Rosenthal was talking about yesterday, was, something, and he couldn't confirm it or anything like that, but he was saying maybe 4 years at 40 per, which would make him the highest annual salaried player. I don't think he's topping Machado as far as the 10 for 300 is concerned. So we'll see where it ends up. I still think L.A. or the West Coast is a better fit for him in every way.
If he wants the best chance to get a World Series ring, that's the way to go. I think that's the easiest.
Well, plus the fact that it's near home.
Yeah.
You can literally commute to Vegas on days off.
Yeah. A lot of people do from L.A. to Vegas. Yeah. It's every weekend you see it here.
He could, on homestands, he could literally get here at least once every homestand, days off, stuff like that. Spring training would also be on the West Coast. He would basically be, once again, a full-time West Coast resident, which those people who know him, I don't, but those people who know him say he likes it better out here. So we'll see how it goes. Kansas, win and cover against Kansas State last night, and Kansas State's quest to get the sweep against a rival they haven't swept in I don't know when, and to win the Big 12, both took a hit last night, and Kansas suddenly just one game back.
It's, we talked yesterday about cats with 9 lives, and, Kansas is keeping, the pulse is there. Kansas State could have put it away yesterday, and, we talked about it. How many people are going to look at it, and sometimes, the square play is the right play. To play Kansas yesterday, the numbers didn't say to do it. I mean, Kansas State was the better team all across the board, and they were getting a hefty number yesterday. But as I said to you, how many people, Dave, are going to walk up to the window with the thought process, oh, there's no way Kansas gets swept by Kansas State?
Well, they did, and it was decisive.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no question about the better team on the floor last night. It was the Jayhawks. They won and deserved to win that game against Kansas State. The Lakers did not win, and they did not deserve to win as they lose to the Grizzlies, and the Lakers are now tied for 10th in the Western Conference. They are 3 games back, 2 in the loss column, but 3 overall in the standings of the number 8 Spurs. It's starting to get a little late.
It is, and Dave, I loved the outcome yesterday. I was on Memphis. We gave that as the a marquee matchup yesterday, but that was also my play for my clients yesterday. And as I said to you, Dave, I just can't lay 5 points on the road with this Laker team right now because you're paying a premium for them. They don't deserve that. You're paying because of the must-win factor. And I'll tell you what, I'm sorry. LeBron's got to take a look in the mirror. Did you see some of the plays yesterday defensively for LeBron? I mean, he was standing around like he's just watching guys go by him, and then he looks at the other guys. I mean, you got to look in the mirror, too, guy. You got to be accountable. And he's not playing great defense. We talked about how bad their defense has been over the last 14 games. And, again, that's what did him in yesterday. It wasn't a high point total for Memphis. It was actually one of the lower ones they gave up. But they got too many easy looks at the basket last night, and that was the win for them.
We're going to cover the NBA. With Jeff Sherman coming up in that spot shortly. We will save the Dallas Stars Vegas Golden Knights game for the Wager Talk marquee matchup later in the show. That means it's time to check out some college basketball tonight. Some of the bigger games of the schedule. We'll do that in our MJ Christensen Diamonds 4 at 4.
1, 2, 3 into the 4.
Put them fours up. Put the fours up, I said. Do it right now.
Tonight's action is just around the bend, and the guys want to get your night off to a great start.
4.
It's the Las Vegas Sports Lines 4 at 4.
Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. Unbelievable.
And we started off with the Big Ten with Ohio State playing at home against Iowa. I'd say this is a somewhat important game for both teams, and it looks very much, on paper, like it's going to be one that goes to the wire.
It does, and, you know, I think this is a bigger game for Ohio State. They need a quality win, and they need it fast. And, you know, Iowa's played well, 5-1 in their last 6 games, but they're only 2-4, Dave, against the spread during that stretch, including losing 4 in a row. Now, as I said, Ohio State needs a signature win, or maybe 2, to beef up that resume if they want to have a shot for a postseason play. They lost the game on Saturday, a 10-point loss to Maryland, and I was on Ohio State, I'll admit. That loss was a little bit misleading, and I probably wouldn't even have picked it up if I wasn't watching the game. But Maryland got to the foul line 25 times in that game. Ohio State only got to the line 7 times, and that was the difference in a 10-point game. Maybe a little bit of home cooking there with the referees in that one. Iowa just 4-13 against the spread on the road the last 2 seasons. I'm going to go ahead, take the team that needs it, Ohio State tonight. I think they get the job done. We're going Ohio State.
Alabama probably needs it. Well, they do need it more than South Carolina. The Gamecocks are not going to get to the NCAA tournament, barring a huge upset in the SEC tournament. But South Carolina, despite they didn't play well in their last game, but they have had some improved performances lately. And Alabama, not the most trustworthy team on the road. Short number here. I think the sharper side is probably South Carolina in this game.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, you know, Alabama, they haven't been real dependable at home either. They've blown some big leads. I had a game last week. They blew a 15-point lead on the road. South Carolina's been a pesky team at times, and they've played a really tough schedule this year, Dave. 16th toughest schedule in the country South Carolina has.
And they took some licks early playing that schedule.
They did, and that should help them down the road. And here's a little stat for you, though, on South Carolina in the last 3 seasons. When they're coming off a loss by 10 points or more in conference play, they have bounced back big. They're 10-2 against the spread in that situation. I'm going to go ahead and take look at South Carolina here, but I'll tell you the other one that I do like. I like the over in this game. 9. You know, you think of Alabama, you always thought of Avery's teams as good defensive teams. They haven't been that this year, uncharacteristically of his teams. I like the over here. South Carolina 9-2 to the over after a 1 or more consecutive losses this season. So we're going to go ahead and take this one over. And the average score in those games after a loss has been 151.5.
Alabama, by the way, on the Lunardi bracketology, barely on the right side of the bubble right now. The loss tonight would certainly hurt them somewhat. We've got Duke and Virginia Tech tonight. This is one of the best games of the schedule. Probably is the best college basketball game on the schedule tonight. The Hokies, still without Robinson, who's been hurt, but they're 4-3 since he went out. Got a win against Notre Dame. I won't say it was a brilliantly played game on Saturday, but they did manage to go into South Bend and get the victory. Now they come home for what is a very big game for the Hokies against the Duke Blue Devils. And for Duke, I think they needed the bounce-back win against Syracuse off the shellacking in the Zion gets injured game against North Carolina. And honestly, they kind of lost their way after he got hurt in that game, so kind of maybe put an asterisk next to that. The win against Syracuse was okay. It wasn't spectacular by any means. but they did get the victory against a tough defense. They'll face another tough defense tonight, and Virginia Tech now in a position where I think this is a really important game at Virginia Tech. There are 2 games against the rival, Virginia. They couldn't win either one. It's not like they need the win in terms of getting into the NCAA tournament. They're locks. They don't have to worry about that. But from a confidence standpoint, I think this is a very big game for Virginia Tech. They need to show they can beat one of the marquee teams to feel better about their chances, to be convinced about their chances going into the big dance.
I agree with you 100%, Dave. And you mentioned the Notre Dame game on Saturday, the fact that, lackluster win, but they get the win going to that. That's a big win when you have Notre Dame on deck. So the fact that they stayed focused and got the job done there.
I mean, part of it was Notre Dame, as usual, just could not hit anything. They're a terrible shooting team.
But I look at this one from the Duke standpoint. Can you get them to play pedal to the metal 3 games in a row? They had the North Carolina game. Granted, they got blown out, but, that was the game with Zion getting hurt. But then they come back and make the statement game. It was a big revenge game against Syracuse.
Yep.
And they had to show that they could win without Zion, and they did. This is a letdown spot for me. I'm a situational guy. I think it's a big letdown spot and a big upside for Virginia Tech at home. Have that game. And this is the 3rd game in 7 days for Duke. And they played at home at North Carolina, then they went to Syracuse, and now to Virginia Tech. That's not an easy schedule in 7 days. I'm on Virginia Tech here. They're 12-2 straight up at home this year. Those 2 losses were to Louisville and Virginia, so no, shame in that. I like them here. I think they pull the upset tonight.
And we'll go to the AAC for a game because this one has some meaning. It's the Temple-Memphis game, and the Owls are very much on the bubble right now. A win at Memphis tonight would be really big for Temple. A loss could be really big as well. This is a big swing game for a team that's maybe in, maybe out right now. A win would really help them here. But to get that, they're going to have to slow down this kid Martin from Memphis, who is absolutely going insane right now. He has been incredible. 2 monster games last week, including the one at Wichita State, where he basically single-handedly brought Temple back from a 16-point deficit, and they ended up winning that game. Nice win for the Memphis Tigers. I don't think they can make the tournament, but they are playing better basketball. Looks like Penny Hardaway is starting to have his imprint on this team, and this is one of the best games of the night.
It is, Dave. And, you look at Temple, and at first glance, you see Temple getting this kind of number. It looks pretty inviting to grab them. But I'll tell you what, Memphis has really turned it up on the defensive end of the floor. Last 6 games, Dave, they've held 5 of the 6 opponents to 41% or less shooting in it. Memphis, they need a few wins and a deep run in the tournament to have any shot at getting anywhere. But they are 13-2 straight up at home. And here's a little stat for you for the last 2 seasons with Memphis. When they've been a home favorite of 6 points or less, they're at -4.5 tonight. They're 10-1 against the spread. I'm going to go ahead and back Memphis tonight. I think they get the job done. And as good as Temple has been this year, off of a home win in their next game, they're just 2-8 against the spread. So I'm on the Memphis Tigers.
Time to bring in Jeff Sherman. We got a lot to talk about with the man from Superbook USA. What's going on, Jeff? How are you?
Oh, excellent. How's it going, guys?
Good. Pretty exciting stuff for the local NHL team. It looked like they were probably going to be standing pat for the most part at the deadline. And as it turns out, they get involved in what to me was the biggest deal of all at the deadline, because they not only picked up Mark Stone, but they made sure it's not a rental. That will become official on March 1st, but they can't announce it before then. But it looks like Mark Stone's going to be a Vegas Golden Knight for a long time to come. Let's get your take on the trade, and also as to whether it does really improve their prospects for this season.
Well, first, I was hesitant to see Brandstrom go. I was really high on him. But then when I found out that'd be signing Stone to the extension, that was more acceptable there. Some teams go in and trade some youth for rentals, and it's just, I don't like that plan at all. But to get him locked up, basically, Lindbergh, he had his fit on the team. The second-round pick from Dallas, they had a few of those. So it's really Brandstrom for Stone. And locking him up, I really like it. It fills a need that they had. So I think it's a really good trade for the Knights. He's going to help out on the power play, which has been deficient lately. So it's a great trade. We didn't have to make any adjustments in the odds. We have them at 12-1 to win the Cup. they're pretty much in that third position in the Pacific Division. So they're going to have to play at Calgary or at San Jose, assuming they hold on to that spot. So